Okay, so we're going to get started on a new shir. Maimer Kuf Yud Dalet, page Kuf Yud Chet. That's what we're getting started with today, which is a continuation of the last, but um, we'll see that Rav Moshe wasn't really fully satisfied with the solutions that he came up with in the last year, and he's going to introduce more Gemaras and more broaden the whole discussion, and hopefully be able to come to a clearer and fuller understanding. So that's what we're going to endeavor to try to accomplish. Okay, so it says, Im Yitmamach Hakelo, which is a pasuk in Chavakuk, the Navi Chavakuk, if he will, which is also, as we'll see, the Perek Bez, pasuk Gimel, and it says that if he will wait, if he will delay, tarry, wait for him. And the Kabel Sachar. And the purpose of that is that there will be a Sachar for the waiting, for the anticipation. So we're going to go back into the Gemara. The Gemara says, Kiha de Zera, right? It says, Kihabi Mashkach Rabbanim de Me'askebe, when he found Rabbanim who were Osek, who were involved in calculating the Kates, Amar Lahu Metusa, please, Be'ina Minaichu, I ask of you, Lo terchakuhu, do not push him off, do not push him into the distance. Do not make the Mashiach further away. The Tanina, because we've learned in the Brisa, Shlosha Boim Behesech Hadas, three things come when you're not anticipating them, Eluhain, Mashiach, Metzia, Ve'akrav. And this Gemara we've seen before. Now we're going to try to delve a little bit more into what was the question, what's the machlokas, not the machlokas, but how do we reconcile the fact that Reb Zera said, do not pay attention, and Chazal and many Rishonim and Achronim did try to figure things out. So we're going to come back to trying to map out a solution to this dilemma. Okay, so let's start. Hesech hadas or ribuy hadas. Malat chishuv haketz de Daniel. Okay. The mamar kodem, the previous mamar, which we've just spent a few weeks doing, asaknu b'sheila ech rabotenu asku b'chishuvei haketz. How was it that our Rabosenu, our rabbis, our teachers, right, were osek in the chishuv haketz, v'lo chashushu la'azarato shel Rabbi Zera, right, and they weren't concerned with Reb Zera's warning or Zera's request. Right? V'nitba'er mekor hanhagatam, the mekor of their behavior, of the way that they behaved, that they acted, was the ones who were osek in this, the Ramban, that's the primary one, but many others as well. So we saw that these were based on the psukim in Daniel, the end of Daniel, stom advarim v'chatom hasefer et ketz, and the pasuk says, and this is in bold print, yishotetu rabim v'tirbei hadat. May many people be involved with this. Yishotetu, may many people be involved with this, v'tirbei hadat, and there will be a ribuy of das. There will be a lot of das. There will be a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding will come out of the fact that people are going to be involved with trying to figure out the psukim, which in their very nature are satum and chatum, which are closed off to us and written in ways which we really can't figure out. Okay? So that's what the psukim in Daniel said, that there is a very positive effect. Yeshota to rabim v'tirbei hadat. May many people be involved with this, and there'll be a lot of that. שתכלית סתימת הקץ בספר דניאל היא כדי שילמדו את הדברים. In other words, the point is that it was written as a kind of a puzzle, as kind of a riddle, that people should learn them, right? וינסו לעמוד על הרמז הגנוז בפסוקים, and they should try to figure out what is the remez, what is hidden in these psukim. But that's what Daniel, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Daniel, this is what the purpose of your writing this down is. Okay, so as we saw in the previous year, there's some opinions in the Rishonim that even Daniel didn't really understand what he was writing. Right? That even Daniel didn't fully grasp what it was meant, but he was just communicated these sentences which were very, very difficult to understand. But whether he did or whether he didn't, that's not necessarily the issue. The issue is that this is meant to be studied, right? And therefore, this is exactly what Rabbeinu did. All the Rishonim and the Achronim who were involved in this limud, right? This is what they did. Ella, she, af im yitbarer shelo tzedku b'derech. Again, this is basically a review of the last couple of pages that we learned before, but this is in order to launch us into the new limud that we're going to be learning in this particular chapter. Ella she af im yitbarer shelo tzedku b'derech. Lo yechazvu b'emunatam. In other words, this is not going to affect their emunah. It's not going to make yechazvu. It's not going to falsify their emunah. So it's not going to be something. Oh, if Mashiach doesn't show up at the time of my calculations, so then he's not going to come. V'alzen ne'amar, because the pasuk says, right? Ki od chazon lamoed. This is a pasuk in the Navi Chavakuk, as we said before. Perek Beis pasuk Gimel. Ki od chazon lamoed. There is still a vision for the time that Mashiach will come. V'yafeach laketz. The Mefarshim explain v'yafeach that they will speak about the kates. V'lo yechazev, and it will not be falsified. Im yitmameach hakelo, if he lingers, if he takes time to arrive, hakelo, continue waiting for him expectantly. Kivo yavo lo yacher. It will come and it will not be late. In other words, it's not going to lo yacher. Probably means that he's not going to become beyond. It will come after the final kates. That's supposed to be right. So we have to constantly be yafeach lekates v'lo yechazev, and we should not consider there to be a problem that our prophecies don't work out and seem to be untrue. Which means even though the previous and earlier cheshbon kates kizev was disappointing and didn't turn out to be true, ainly pol be'emunah mikoach. But we shouldn't, our emunah shouldn't at all lapse. We got to continue waiting because we know he's coming. V'kach katav Rashi b'Daniel, and this is the famous Rashi. We've seen this Rashi several times already in the previous year. Rashi says, "V'anu." What about us? Nochil l'avtachat malkeinu. Kates achar kates. We will look forward expectantly to the promise of our King Hashem. Kates achar kates. One kates after another kates. Uba'avor kates hadoresh and nodaki tamid roshav. And when one of the kates passes, of a doresh, somebody who darshans the psukim and takes out of the psukim a certain time, right? We'll know that and if it passes by, so we'll know that he made a mistake. And somebody after him will come and search out another derech. That's the mahalach, and this is the way the Lechatchila HaKadosh Baruch Hu set it up. That we should be zoch in the gates. Omno. But now we come back to the question, Shava HaKushel Divrei Reb Zera. So now the question comes for Farker, right? We have a kasha on Reb Zera. Lama heiniat talmidav milasok b'sugyazu. Why did he prevent his talmidim from being osek in this sugya? Ve'ech amar shemitasek bazeh dochet haketz. And how did he say that being involved with this pushes off the ketz? Neged ab'furash b'psukim v'Daniel. And this goes against the psukim. The psukim says Yeshot Tuba Rabbeim. People should be involved with it. People should be studying it, right? And so what was so problematic that Reb Zera told people not to do that? Gabi Zeh Amarnu, again reviewing what we said. Shedavar talui ba'ofen sheba lefarish et hapsukim. It depends on how you're coming to darshan psukim. Imu mefarish et haketz kedei lahotzi mistimuto b'derech vaday. If you're darshaning the ketz in order to take out of it, to emerge from it, right? From its stimut, from its being unclear. B'derech vaday, right? That you're saying this is definitely going to be the date. It's just like this would be like similar to Yaakov Avinu wanted to be Megala the Ketz, and if Yaakov Avinu was going to be Megala the Ketz, he was going to be Megala Vada. He wasn't going to be Megala, right? Something which maybe yeah, maybe no, right? That wasn't going. That wasn't on Yaakov Avinu's agenda. So Bikesh Yaakov was a Ketz, Legal Ketz, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid it from him. But so then we say azadavar asur ubekochol itchot et haketz. Okay, that's what we said, right? Bivadai. Aval imu rak asuk lehavin et perush apsukim. But if their whole involvement is to understand what the psukim are talking about, kidivrei Torah ba'alma, right? Umitoch emunah v'tzipiyah sheyitgaleh haketz mimikoro helyon. We're studying divrei Torah, and we have this belief, this emunah, and this tzipiyah, and this hopeful expectation that the Kates will be revealed, min mikoro ha'elyon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will eventually reveal the time of the Kates. Zehu ma'alav v'chiyuv. That's a good thing, and there's even an obligation. Ha'malach hazehu mechuvan b'divrei Ramban. This is what the Ramban meant. Shekol divrei ha'meforshim ein b'kavanasam legalot et ha'ketz. They didn't mean to be megala the Kates. V'lachein eino b'chlal gzera shel mechash v'kitzim, where it says. We'll see another Gemara that's in the next Omud in Sanhedrin that says that Tipach Rucha, that the people of Mechashiv Ketz is something very bad. Mishum shekavanatam rak lefarish divrei haksuvim b'derech efsher, as the Ramban says. Derech efsher. In other words, we're coming to explain the psukim as possibilities, and that's permitted. Meaning, we're trying to look what can I glean from this pasuk, and it says, okay, but now we're going to go into this a little bit more deeply. Okay, that was the basic structure of the things that we've seen. But Moshe is not so satisfied yet, and he has another Gemara, a very famous Gemara, which is Kedai. Many of everybody's heard of it. This Gemara already in Ksuvas, and about the Gimel Shvuos, about the 3 oaths, and this will help us understand, right, the relationship between, as he says here in the title, al hagolus ve'al haketz. We're going to talk about there's golus, right, and there's ketz. Okay, I mean obviously the ketz is the end of the golus, but we're going to see that we're allowed to maintain the golus, right? And if the Kates is part of our being in Golus, that's okay. If we try to establish a Kates in a more final way, so then that's not the way to do it. We'll see. We'll see how this Gemara helps us understand this. Okay. Bet ofanim b'chishukei. V'nimsa lefizeh. So now the conclusion is, sheyesh shnei ofanim be'esa gilya b'chishuv haketz. Echad me'hem hu b'sakana lidchot et haketz. One of them has a danger of pushing off the Kates, which is, as Reb Zera told his Talmidim, please don't be involved with it. And the second way is ra'ui, it's appropriate, ratzui, it's desirable. And that's what the Rishonim did. So Moshe says that how do these become one sugya? Meaning, it's not that there's a good thing and a bad thing, but he wants to understand more deeply the relationship between, right, what is the good way to do it and what is the bad way to do it, and what is the place of each one of these possible approaches in the Mahalach, as it moves along, the Golus, the Geula, and the Tzipiyah L'Shua. Okay, so that's what we're going to try to understand more deeply how these things fit together. Okay, so here we're beginning. Okay, this is up to now is Chazara, and the question that we're going to present you the problem, and now we'll see how it works. L'shem kach nilmad sugya nosefet ha'oseket be'inyan hagalut ve'haketz. So let's learn another sugya, which is also osek in the inyan of galus haketz. Right. So up till now we've been focusing on our sugya in Sanhedrin and Perchelik, And now we're going to broaden our approach and see another one. We'll see where did Reb Zera coming from. Where was he coming from? In other words, we're seeing that from this, we will be able to identify the source of what was bothering Reb Zera, again, as opposed to the proper way, and we'll understand it. Kach mavur beGemara b'sof ksuvas. Okay, so the Gemara tells us this. Reb Moshe doesn't quote the whole Gemara, just quotes part of it, but it's a well-known Gemara. So the Gemara tells us as follows. I'm reading, if anybody wants to open a Gemara, right? And Ksuvas Daf Kuf Yud Amid Beis, the very bottom, the last two lines on Kuf Yud Amid Beis. And Rav Moshe is going to quote more of the Gemara, but I'm just starting from the very beginning of this little piece. Reb Zera, says the Gemara, right? Havi kamishtamet minei de Rav Yehuda. Okay, so Rav Yehuda was the Rosh Hashiva in Bavel. Okay? He was the primary Talmud of Rav and Shmuel, the second generation of Amoraim in Bavel. And Reb Zera was a Talmud, and Reb Zera wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. The boy lemesek Eretz Yisrael. So he was mishtamet from, right? So Reb Zera was mishtamet from Reb Yehuda. He avoided him, right? He didn't want to run into Reb Yehuda, right? Why? The Omar Reb Yehuda, because Reb Yehuda had the position, the shita, called ha'olah mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael over ba'aseh. Anybody who, right, would make aliyah from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, okay, is over ba'aseh, is over a positive command, transgresses a positive commandment, as the Navi says in Yirmiyahu, Bavela yuva'u v'shama yihu. They will be brought to Bavel, and there they will be ad yom pakdi as osam, until the day that I remember them, until the day that I bring them back. Nu'um Hashem. Okay, so Rav Yehuda was, and that was his shita. That's it says it's, and he would not allow people. If anybody asked him a shaila, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael, by people who were living in Bavel. Again, we know that Eretz Yisrael also had a center of limud, the Amoraim, the Rabbi Yochanan and his Talmidim were in Eretz Yisrael, and there was a Talmud Yerushalmi being developed, etc., etc. But Rabbi Yehuda felt very strongly that those who were in Bavel should stay in Bavel. Okay, and Reb Zera wanted to go to Yisrael, so so it says the Gemara of Reb Zera. What did Reb Zera? Right? What did Reb Zera hold? It says the Gemara. Hahu b'chlei shoris ksiv. Right? Reb Zera said that pasuk is not talking about people. That pasuk is talking about the klisharis, the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash. They will be brought to Bavel, and that's where they should stay. But it wasn't referring to the people. Reb Yehuda, right? So what did Reb Yehuda do? So Reb Yehuda had a different pasuk. Reb Yehuda had another pasuk to strengthen his position. Ksiv kra achrina. Okay, and this is a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Hishbati eschem benos Yerushalayim b'tzvaot o ba'elot hasadeh. Right, there's an oath, right? Right, and benos Yerushalayim, right, to the people from Yerushalayim, b'tzvaot o ba'elot hasadeh. The Gemara is going to relate this to the tzvaot or the deer, like a tzvi and ayalot hasadeh, and the ayala of the different kind of a deer in the fields. And there it says, what's the end of the pasuk? The end of the pasuk says, Im ta'iru, the Gemara doesn't quote it, but it says, Im ta'iru ve'im ta'oriru ad shetechpatz. They don't arouse HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love until the time comes. In other words, this is not something that you should be involved in terms of bringing about some kind of a redemption. Wait till HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeems you. But so that's what Rabbi Yehuda held. Rabbi Yehuda held. Reb Zera, hahu shelo ya'alu Yisrael b'chomo. Okay, he says no. That means that Yisrael shouldn't go up b'chomo. B'chomo, so Rashi says, what does b'chomo mean? Yachad b'yad chazakah. Right? So it means that they shouldn't go together, right, to conquer Eretz Israel, right, to organize some kind of an armed force, an army, and conquer Eretz Israel. That's what it means. But it doesn't mean to say that individuals can't go to Eretz Israel. So that's Rabbi Zera held that it was mutter to go, and he disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, right? Hishbati achrinaksi. But if you look in Shir Hashirim, 3 times it says Hishbati eschem. So therefore, right, there's another Ishbati, which means that which applies even to individuals. Okay, Reb Zera, and here we get to the point of that Moshe is quoting in our Gemara, so we'll be able to see it inside in a minute. Reb Zera says that these three shvuos are there to teach us, right, what Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina taught us. The Omar, right? Okay, this now so everybody can follow now in the text of the Sefer that we have, where this is where the beginning where the Gemara is quoted. Miboyle like Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina, the Omar who says Gimel Shvuos Halol Lama. What are these 3 shvuos? Right? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu need to make 3 oaths? Right? So and Chazal understood that these 3 oaths had to do with Am Yisrael being in Golus and not coming and the conditions of being in Golus. Says Rabbi Yosef Chanina, Achas shelo ya'lu Yisrael b'chomo, as we saw above, right, that they shouldn't come as a wall, which means as a mass force. The Achas shehishbi'a HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Yisrael shelo yimredu b'umos ha'olam, that the Jewish people should not rebel against the nations of the world. Meaning that we have to, if we're under the domination of foreign powers, that this is the Golus, and we have to accept the fact of the Golus, and we shouldn't try to break out of the Golus by rebellion. The Achas, right, Sheishbiya HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Ovdei Kochavim, and the third one was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave a shua to the Ovdei Kochavim, to the Goyim, Shelo Yishtabdu Ben Yisrael Yosem Midai, that they shouldn't, right, enslave or put into servitude or make their yoke too heavy on the Jewish people. So they also have to keep their end of the bargain. Okay? And that's okay. Okay, so that's the first thing. These are the 3 shvuos. Okay, let's just read a very interesting footnote here, right? Uchiyadua, right? As we'll see right away, there's 3 shvuos plus another 3 shvuos. V'inyan gimel shvuos hu sheyesh din shelo levatel es gzeres hagolus shel bavel yuvo v'shamayu. In other words, there is a gzeres hagolus, right? There's a gzera that we should be in Bavel, right? And we should not be mevatel it. Okay. V'inyan shelo yalu Yisrael b'choma perish Rashi yachad biyad chazaka. Right, that's what we saw the Rashi. That's I mentioned it together with a strong arm. The Hainu sheklal Yisrael lo yalu biyachad lichbosh et Eretz Yisrael biyad chazaka. Aval etzem ha'aliyah le'Eretz Yisrael. But Moshe says that it's meduyik from the Rashi that just making aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, right? Lo avi bittul hashvus. That's not considered to be mevatul hashvus. Kiven shezel lo bittul legolus. Right. Because that's not a bittul of golus. In other words, because Baruch Hu wants the golus, right? Doesn't want us to be mevatel the golus. He says, I'm putting you into a golus, and that's where I want you to be until it's time for redemption. So that's not considered to be, if a person, and individuals, or even if many individuals, right, make aliyah, that's not considered to be a bittul of golus because the golus is still there. And then Rav Moshe puts into parentheses, Ve'adraba, yesh tzad she'agolus b'Eretz Yisrael chazaka yoter. Which, right, there's a sad to say that the Golus in Eretz Yisrael is even stronger than the Golus in Chutz La'aretz. Right? And right, for those who get put in jail for different reasons, right? 2 more people were put in jail yesterday. That's okay. You can understand what the Golus is, but lo mishav, right? V'yadua. But here's an interesting thing that Moshe writes here that he said in the shir. She'Rebbe misatmar b'sifro. The Satmar Rebbe in his book, right, wrote a book on these inyanim, al Geula v'al Tmura, to'en she'atzionut v'aliyah haya avera l'shvuot. He claims that the whole Zionist endeavor, aliyah, was a transgression against the Shavuos. ובזה גורמים להתיר את בשרם של כלל ישראל להפקר קצבאות וחיות השדה. Because at the end of the Gemara is going to say, אם תאירו ואם תאורו את העבד שתחפץ, and the Gemara is going to say that בצבאות או כחיות השדה. That means that Am Yisrael is going to become hefker like the deer and the deer of the fields, which means that there will be, right, as Rashi says here, that there will be hefker, that people their flesh will be eaten like the flesh of the deer, which means that it's a very big sakana to be over on these Shavuos. So that's what the Samar Rebbe was said. In other words, as it says, as the Gemara says, that if we violate the Shavuos, so then our flesh will be hefker. But Rav Moshe takes the position that not like the Samar Rebbe. Ach b'pashtus nira ke'elu shesavru she'ein ze aver al Shavuot. Rav Moshe says that the pashtus is that it's not like the opposing opinion, and even among the Haredi Judaism. It's right, and most of the people, most of the great Gedolim disagree with the Satmar Rebbe. Kivan sheruba deruba shel aliyah ita b'reshut, because the vast majority of the aliyah was with permission. V'lo bi'ar chazaka, it wasn't forcing our way in. There were some illegal aliyah, but that was a minor thing, a minor element, but that wasn't the main thing. V'gam hachraza al medina pipashtus lo isa ve'ra l'shvuot. He says that he doesn't see that declaring a state was an avera. Ve'af shevadai she'im asu dvarim shekeneged hagalut v'averot acherot. He says they did bad things, right? Even against the goal. So v'lo yazeh avera shel shvot. Okay, I'm not capable of making decisions here, but that's what Rabbi Hirshfeld points out, that it's not that we shouldn't take the Gimel Shavuot as being something which is a complete opposition to the fact that we are in Eretz Yisrael and that there's a government in Eretz Yisrael. That's not the problem. Okay, and I mean, yes, really, not too long ago, I heard on the radio a learned Datilumi rabbi who spent quite a bit of time trying to demonstrate that the Haredim have the wrong position because the Shalosh Shvuot do not apply anymore. But it was a little bit of a red herring, meaning he set this up and said, okay, the problem that the Haredim see with the state and everything is the Shalosh Shvuot, and I'm going to prove to you that this is not the case, and so therefore there's nothing else to talk about. Okay, that's. So we have to know that that's not necessarily the only problem, but that's the question. But okay, let's get back to our sugya. Okay. So we have let's read again. So I'll start again from the top. I mean, what does Reb Zera do? ואחת שהשביע הקדוש ברוך הוא את ישראל שלא ימרדו באומות העולם, not to rebel, ואחת שהשביע הקדוש ברוך הוא את עובדי כוכבים שלא ישתעבדו בו יותר מדי. Rabbi Yehuda says, okay, those are 3 Shavuos, but the pasuk says, im ta'iru ve'im te'oreru. In ta'iru and te'oreru seem to be synonyms, right? It's the same shoresh, right? Right? In Hebrew, we also say, leha'ir with an ayin is to wake somebody up, right? Leha'ir, right? We say that a person is awake. We say he's air, right? Ayin reish, he's aware, he's awake. Ayin reish, air, and le'orer is the same shorish, is to wake somebody, awaken somebody to some idea, to something. Right? So Rabbi Yehuda says that the fact that the pasuk, there's 2 words that this indicates there's other things besides besides these things that are mentioned. There's he still held that it was included in the Shavuos was the Isser even for individuals to make Aliyat Eretz Yisrael. Reb Zera, but now here's our interesting thing that this is going to be very important for us. Reb Levi. He says that these words im ta'iru v'im toraru are necessary to teach me for the teaching of Rabbi Levi. The Omar Sheish Shavuot Halalu Lama. Why do we have the 6 Shavuos? In other words, because he says im hishbati eschem benos Yerushalayim im ta'iru v'im toraru. So each Shavua has a double Shavua, one for the ta'iru and one for the toraru. So he says, what do we have? The 6 Shavuos. So Tlata Hani De'amar, 3 that we've already mentioned. Enoch and the other 3, Shalo, this is what we're going to be focusing on. Shalo Yegalu et HaKetz, that the Jewish people should not reveal the Ketz. We'll see what that means, try to see what that means. Okay. V'shalo Yerachaku et HaKetz, and they shouldn't push it off, make it further in the distance. V'shelo yegalu hasod la'ovdei kochavim, and they should not reveal the secret to the goyim. Bitzvaot o beyalot hasadeh, that's the end of the pasuk. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar le'am HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, im atem mekayimim et hashvua mutav, if you fulfill the shvua, good. V'im lav, ani matir et besarchem kitzvaot u'chayalot hasadeh. I'm going to make hefker, Rashi says, your basar, like the flesh of the deer. Meaning the flesh of the deer is hefker, because the predators can easily, right, the wolves and the lions and the tiger, whatever they are, right, can kill the deer and eat them, and that's how you're going to be. Your flesh will be hefker like the alot hasadeh if you transgress. That's what Samarov was claiming, that all of the calamities that have been fallen to the Jewish people were because there's a kiyum of this matirat b'sarchem, right? Because the Jewish people transgressed the Shavuos, right? Okay, but be that as it may, that was the because of Rashi. So now we're just going to read the Rashis on this piece of Gemara that we just read. Shelo yalu b'choma yachad b'yad chazaka, as we read before. Im ta'ir toraru. Shtei shvuot b'chol echad. It's a double shvuot. Each one has a double shvuot, 2 shvuot. Shelo yegalu et haketz nevi'im shebeineihem. So Rashi says that this means the nevi'im, right, who presumably have a knowledge of the ketz, should not reveal it. It was an admonition to anybody who knows these things, b'derech nevuah, right, should keep quiet. Right? This is not for public consumption. V'shelo yerachaku et hachetz. So here Rashi gives us two pshatim, and we'll discuss both of them. Ba'avonam, but they're sins. In other words, do not continue to sin, because the sins are going to just make the kates move way further and further. We are angolus because of our sins, and so we should be doing tshuva rather than adding and multiplying our sins. Lishna achrina, says Rashi. Rashi is a different girsan, a dalet instead of a resh. Right? Not shelo yirachaku et chetz, shelo yitchaku garsinan. Loshon dochak. Dochak means pressing, pushing. And Rashi says a very interesting thing. Shelo yirbu betachnunim al kach yoter midai. Don't daven too much for Moshiach. Don't be marbet tachnunim. Yoter midai, too much. Okay. We'll see what too much is, but that's, in other words, don't be preoccupied with it and try to push the coming of the Kates. Okay? So you don't have to necessarily go around singing, we want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, because that might not be the best way to go about it. Right? Right. I was just reminiscing with one of my sons on Shabbos. When my sons were younger, about 8, 9 years old, we were in America for the summer, and with my in-laws, and we enrolled them in the Chabad day camp. That was the day camp locally in New Jersey, where my in-laws lived. And I said, "What did you learn in your Chabad day camp?" And what they remember is, we want Moshiach now, we want. So this goes back, if my sons were 8, 9 years old, so this goes back well over 30 years. But anyway, so things haven't changed. But anyway, this is not necessarily what we think. Shelo yidchaku karsinan shelo loshon dochak shelo yirbu betachnunim al kach yoter midai. V'shelo yegalu et hasod. What is the sod? So Rashi says two pshatim. Amru la sod ha'ibur. Some people say that we're talking about the sod of ibur, which is the way the calendar was made, and this is certain were meant to be secret calculations. The Amru la sod tamei haTorah, and others say the secrets behind the reasons of the Torah. These should not be revealed, and we'll see in the next page, in 2 pages, there's a whole footnote which brings a lengthy Maharal, which goes into this issue, and we'll see when we get to it. Matir et bisarchem, matir, your flesh will become permitted. Says Rashi, Lashon Hefker, means that it'll be Hefker. Okay. Nimsa. Okay, a Gimel Shvuas I'll leave with the Rashi, so now let's see what's going on here. Nimsa. The Rashi yesh shtei girsot. The girsa rishona hashvua hi shelo yirachaku et hachetz. Yarchiku et hachetz. It means do not push off the kates through your sins. Right? In other words, yirachaku means don't push it off, but here the kavanah is the opposite. Do not try to push it. Do not try to make it happen through ribui tefillos. Parentheses. Of course, we have to daven 3 times a day. But do not make those extra special efforts to force the issue. Right? I'm going to get up and it says that tzaddikim are tzaddik is gozer, kodesh baruch hu makayim. I'm going to force the issue. Right? Whatever kochos we have. We shouldn't force it. Right? We should daven for it. We should ask for it. We should hope for it. But that's what we have to do. So biuro shel Amaral b'Gimel Shvuot. What's going on? Amaral b'Perek Avdal miSefer HaNetzach v'daber gam al Inyan Shvuot v'zeh yikad l'Rav. Okay. So this is a very important piece of Amaral. Again, I would be interested in people asking questions if any come up. Okay, or comments. So but let's read the Amaral inside. Ubir inyan zeh. He said, why do we need Shavuos in the first place? Because Golus, and this is the Yesod of the whole Yesod of the Maral in the Sefer of the Netzach Yisrael, right? Golus is unnatural. Right? It's a Shinui Miseder HaOlam. It's a change from the way the world is supposed to be. V'davar kamo ze kashe sheyamod b'shinui haseder shalom. Right, and it's very difficult for things to be maintained when their seder is changed. Meaning, if something is not in its natural state, so then there is a pull to bring it back to its natural state. Everything wants to revert back to it. If you think about, if you stretch your rubber band, it wants to bounce back. Right? Right, because everything wants to come back to its original state. V'tamidu chafetz levatel hashinui, and every object which is in a state of shinui wants to be mevatel hashinui, wants to go back to being itself. Dahainu sheyitkapsu min hapizur. So therefore, if we're scattered, so then there is a natural force which brings. Right, wants to unite all of the different pieces and kind of some kind of a force which will bring them all together, some kind of a magnetic thing where everything will be attracted back to its core, to its center. In other words, Am Yisrael will have a natural desire to say, listen, we don't want to be in Golus. We don't want to be scattered. Right? That's not the natural way for a nation to be. Right? We want to be the way we're supposed to be, right? So v'zeu pirud zemizeh, and so the pizur is being separated. In other words, the golus is a pirud, right? And Am Yisrael doesn't want that. So therefore, that's why it was important that there should be a Shavua. That's what it means there was a Shavua. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed that Am Yisrael, right, has to look at it, right, whether knowingly or unknowingly or some kind of a force, that we should accept the fact that we're in Golus and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be in this unnatural state, and we are not free to try to, right, utilize that natural attraction that everything has to return to its source. We're not free to use that, right? And we have to accept the fact that we're going to be torn away from each other and scattered, and that's the way it should be. That's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to be, as long as there's a golus. Obviously, the golus was not meant to last forever, okay? As there's always going to be a kates, as we will see, as we've seen and we will see, right? So there's going to be a kates, but that's not our business. Our business isn't to interfere with the process of moving from golus to kates, but we should accept the fact that we have a shvua. This is it. This is, you just have to bear the yoke of the golus. Hasheni, shelo yimradu Yisrael b'umot v'zeu mitzad Yisrael, that we should that the Jews have a shvua not to rebel. Hagimel shelo yishtabdu b'hem yoter midai, v'zeh mitzad ha'umot. Because, again, it's the same idea. Because if the goyim will oppress us too much, so then that will be a force will be a force which will make us want to come back and end the golus, because it will become intolerable. Whereas the goyim have a responsibility not to create intolerable situations which won't give us a choice. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that Rabbi Hirshfeld, when he spoke about these Gimel Shavuos, so he did claim that the fact that the goyim didn't keep their end of the bargain frees us from our end of the bargain. And he says that since they were mishabed clearly, right, certainly in the Jewish history of the 20th century, that the goyim were mishabed and Yosher Midai, so then we don't have these Shavuos anymore. All of these things are possible drushim, and people say, but that's an approach. Okay, but in any event, but the point is that these three Shavuos were meant to be guarantees that the golus would remain, that the golus would stay in place, that the Jews would stay in golus, and it would be perpetuated as long as the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Okay? And we shouldn't allow ourselves to try to overcome that force of golus, that call it the centrifugal force of golus, to some kind of a force to bring us back together. Okay, that's the first three Shavuos. What are the second three Shavuos, says the Maharal? Rabbi Levi Darash, Od, Im ta'iru v'im taru kol echad ve'echad b'fnei atzmo, each word separately, in other words, Mareim sheish Shavuot, which means 6. Ki kakabakatuv nemar gimel pamim ishbati etchem, says 3 times ishbati etchem, I'm causing you to make an oath, and 3 times, then twice each one is a double. The Darash Reb Levi, Im ta'iru v'taru heim shtei Shavuot kol echad kefel shnayim Mareim sheish. The Maharal points out 3 times 2 is 6. ולפיכך הוסיף עוד 3 שבועות, אחת, שלא יגלו הקץ. Okay, now what's so important about שלא יגלו הקץ? Says the Maharal, כי כאשר יגלו הקץ, הרי יש כאן גאולה. Knowing the ketz is tantamount to already being redeemed. כי מי שידע זמנו לצאת, somebody knows when he's going to go out, כאילו הוא ניגל. In other words, somebody who knows, listen, I got another 10 years, 20 years, I got another 100 years, but I know that, I know exactly what's going to happen. I see it all mapped out in front of me, right? I have a guarantee that in such and such a year, there will be a geula. So then our whole relationship to the geula as to the golus as something which seems unending, and as we'll see, excuse me for the cough, but which seems, and then that we'll see that's that's part of the golus is that it should seem right, unending, and we see Chazal tell us that the fourth, Moshe will quote it, but the fourth of the Arba Malchios, right? We know that there are Arba Malchios, and right, the Haaretz says Tohu Vavohu V'Choshech Al Pnei Tohom, right? And the Chazal Darshan that the Tohu Vohu Choshech and Tohom represent the four Malchios of the four kingdoms that have been Meshabed Am Yisrael, that have brought us into Golus, and that's Bavel and Paras and Yavon and Edom and Rome, right? And the Gemara, but the Chazal apply the word Tohom, right? The depths, right? The unfathomable depths, the depths which have no end, right? which we're incapable of finding and seeing. That's the Golus that we're in now. So it's supposed to be, it is at the home, and it was meant to be at the home. It was meant to be something which we will not be able to see the end of it, right? There's something that, right, and that's a necessary condition of the Golus, right? Because we have to be in a situation where we don't know exactly how it's going to end and how we're going to get out of it, okay? And so that's Shelo Yigalu Aketz. And Rashi says the Nevi'im should, but we'll see that it's not only the Nevi'im. Kikasher Yigalu Aketz Harei Yesh Kan Geula. As we said, Zmano Letzet Kilu Nigal. Vashem Rasi Yisbarach Sam HaGalut. He put us into Galut. V'lo yeh nimsa Ketz Kodem Zmano. And the Ketz will not come earlier. It won't be early. L'fichach al Yigalu HaKetz. In other words, the Ketz isn't there before its time. In other words, it's not something which we can relate to now. Well, it's something which only happen when it happens. It'll be, right? Right, but before it happens, it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't exist, right? So therefore, we can't put ourselves into a situation of ketz where the ketz is not yet, and knowing the ketz, knowing when it'll be, puts us already in a world of ketz, right? And that's not where we're supposed to be. Okay. Ulefira Galu Aketz. Upirish Rashi. And so for the first thing is again we're still on the first one. Shelo Yigalu Aketz. Ulefira Al Yigalu Aketz. Upirish Rashi. Al Yigalu Aketz. Hainu Nevim Shebetocham. Al Yigalu. Okay. That's what Rashi said in the Gemara. But now the Maharal says, and this is going to be very, very important for our discussion. V'li nira, the Maharal says, don't be involved with the ketz. To be so involved with it, to the point where you'll discover what it is. Okay, so here already is the seed of where our involvement with the ketz is not good, which is what Rav Kahana was saying, because it eliminates the golus. Right? In other words, the gilui haketz takes us out of the state of golus, and we're not allowed to remove ourselves from the state of golus. Okay, so what we're not allowed to do is relate to the ketz in a way which brings it into the present. It makes it part of our reality, because we're not supposed to be in a time of ketz. Now we're supposed to be in a time of golus. Right. Okay, and so just to spin ahead a little bit, fast forward a little bit, just to see where we're going. So that means is that as long as our involvement with the ketz, right, is a part of experiencing the golus, that's fine. Whereas we're allowed to the ketz is part of our golus experience, right? That's the good way to be involved, right? To see maybe how can this golus end, right? Right? And I'm in golus now, and where's it heading? Right? To look at the golus and say, maybe this is the point it's going to. Maybe that's the point it's in. Right? But to jump into the ketz and bring it into the present, that's something that we can't do. Maybe I must explain it, but that's that's the heading. That's where we're going, and that's why the as we'll see, the first three shvuos have to do with Golus, and the second three shvuos have to do with Kates, right? And it's right, and each one is a separate parsha, right? Each one we have to relate to Golus, right? We have to relate to the Kates as part of the Golus, and right, and I'll say maybe this way: we have to relate to the Kates as part of the Golus, and not to the Golus as part of the Kates. Okay, and that may be a way to say it. Okay, so that's Gam. Another thing the Maharal says, Lo yigalu lomar b'farhesya. You can't speak it out in public. Ki bizman hazeh tiyeh geula, right? Because again, the more it's revealed, so then the more then the less golus we're in. Uperi zeh borer, and this is clear. Here he says what Rashi says. Here the Maharal quotes Rashi, right? That we shouldn't be dochek the kates, meaning we shouldn't bring the kates into our present reality. Right? We shouldn't say, okay, I want the kates to happen now. I want the kates to be a reality for me. Right? That you can't do. Right? Have to be something, the Kates has to be something in the future, something far off, something which I'm hoping for, I'm waiting for, but it can't be something which is already here. Okay, and those are the six shvuos, three regarding Golas and three regarding Shades. Torev Dvorev, again, now Moshe will maybe summarize it, maybe he'll summarize it again, right, in his words. Devav Shashvuot halalu and Gimel Kfulot, these six shvuos are three pairs. Gimel Shvuot Rishonot Hem Kedei Lekayim Exert HaGalut. The first three shvuos are to preserve, maintain the Exert HaGalut. Ubeladei Shvuot Elu HaGalut Haita Mitbatelet Me'eleha. Because if we didn't have the shvuos, then the Galus would just become bottled by itself, because the natural forces would be to try to escape the Galus, try to bring us back together. That force, that gravitational pull that we have towards returning to our sources. The Od Gimel Shvuot Shelo Lavi Et HaGeula Al Yedei Gilui HaKetz. Don't try to bring the Geula through a Gilui HaKetz or through too much prayers and supplications. The Kasher Yesh Mishum. I skipped the line. The Gilui HaKetz Nechshav LiGeula, as the Maharal said. Mishum. Okay, and this is what the point that the central point that the Maharal is making. Shehagalut muchachat liyot matzav she'ein mimeno motza. Golus has to be a situation that has no way out, dead end street. That's what Golus has to be. When we experience Golus, we experience that we're in a situation where there's no way out of our Golus. Right? And if it's something that we have a zman, the knowledge is a certain element, has a certain element of geula in it, because it's giving a fixed amount of time. Okay, and so that's already a geula. I know I'm living in a world which in 100 years, 200, whatever, it's going to end. So, Seder, I know exactly when it's going to end. Until then, I'll be Mesader my life, right? So, let's say I know it's coming in 100 years, so I'm not going to build a house that'll last for 200 years, right? Because it doesn't make any sense, right? I'll build a house that'll last for 100 years, right? Because Seder, that makes sense, right? So, that's okay. Now, Moshe will finish up with this last paragraph today. This Yesod, that Golus has to be something where we don't have a clear way out, is true about all Golus, not only this Golus. But how hidden the Kates will be is changes from Golus to Golus. Right? There was a Kates Megullah. We know 400 years, 70 years. It wasn't like an absolute time. It wasn't clear how to make the calculations. Okay. Is what I said before. That's the lashon of Chazal and Bereshis Rabbah and other midrashim, that the last golus is kitahom. It's like the depths she'ein lacheker, which we say are unfathomable. Shlo sheyach klal legalot et haket shel galot zu. It's not sheyach to reveal it. Okay. Now this is a response. If you look at footnote Gimel to a question that somebody asked last week, I don't remember exactly who it was, but he says, I think it was Jory, but he says, Ach inyan shita alfei shnei havi alma v'chad choruv. Somebody asked, what happened to the 6,000 years? Right? The world is going to last 6,000 years and it's going to be destroyed in the seventh year, in the seventh millennia. Varei chayav liot. He says, sof ha'olam v'gula chay b'tshuva. In other words, he's saying, okay, in other words, 6,000 is the maximum. Right? But up until 6,000, we have no idea. Okay. Right. Okay, let's finish up the paragraph. This is different than the Maral is arguing on Rashi. It's not only going on the Nevi'im, but Kol Klal Yisrael shelo yasku b'zeh v'lo yasu mizeh inyan. All of Klal Yisrael is commanded not to be osek in this matter of the kates and not make it an inyan. Okay, so this is setting up. I said I fast forwarded a little bit, but that's setting up the dichotomy between the shuas of the golus, the shuas of the kates, and the golus has to be an absolute golus. And anything any involvement with the kates, which will infringe or impinge or somehow take us out of the matzav of golus, right, when before the time, is something which is undesirable. Right? Things which are part of the golus experience. Right? I'm waiting and just waiting, and maybe it'll come now, and maybe it'll come tomorrow, maybe it'll come next week, and maybe it'll come in a year, in 10 years, 20 years, but it's all part of my feeling that I'm in golus, and I really want to get out of the golus. Right? I don't know how I'm going to get out. I don't know when. Maybe, and I have some hints. I study the book of Daniel, and I say, okay, there's a hint. Maybe it will happen in this year. Maybe it'll happen in that year. I'm trying to figure out, how could it? What are my expectations? What am I hoping for? Where am I moving to? Those are okay, because that's an inherent part of what it means to be in golus. Because if we weren't thinking about that, so then we wouldn't be in golus mitzad acher. From the other point, we wouldn't be in golus because we're not even experiencing the golus. We don't care about the golus, right? How many Jews, right, in the world of prosperity, think about, something? We're really in golus. Right? Things are very bad. Right? Okay, today we have anti-Semitism rising, unfortunately, all over the world. So we have it reinforces the sense of golus. But many Jews are living very satisfied, prosperous lives. Right? They have their communities, and they have their families, and they have their businesses, and they have everything. And they're kind of hoping that Moshiach, like, hold your horses, wait till I retire because I'm still making money or something, or something like that. And so the danger is on both sides. The danger is, on the one hand, not relating seriously to the fact that we're in golus, not feeling the golus, but on the other hand, trying to get out of the golus too much, right? To push ourselves into the future and end the golus before it's meant to end. So we're in this middle situation. We have to experience the golus, feel it, feel how bad it is, feel how terrible the situation is that we are in golus, and understand that the world is very, very, very far from where it should be, where it used to be when we had the Beis HaMikdash, when we had the Nevi'im, when we had the Gilui Shechina, and which will be even more so, Bezrat Hashem, when we will experience the time of the Mashiach. So we have to feel that the burden of the golus, the tragedy of the golus today, that's what we have to feel, right? But on the other hand, that shouldn't be a pressure and a motivation to escape it prematurely and try to experience a kates when that kates isn't really there, because if we try to experience that kates prematurely, then the result will be pushing it off. Right? Then Baruch says, "You're trying to get the kates, so I'm going to move it a little further." So, right? So you won't be able to get it you won't be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So by doing that, we're pushing off the case, and that's the balance that we're talking about there. Okay, we'll stop here for today, and the Zad Hashem to you. And okay, thank everybody for joining, and everybody
Thank
should
you,
have a
Rav.
very good
Robert.
and peaceful week, and we chas v'shalom shouldn't have any missiles landing on us in here in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, bye. Okay, call too. Good to see you now. We will. Bye bye. Okay.